One of the biggest double-edged swords that we got to deal with in our society now is AI, artificial intelligence. Because on the one hand, it's helping us out a lot. We're making a lot of breakthroughs in things like medical technology. But on the other hand, this same powerful tool can cause a lot of harm too. And where we're seeing that come up right now is in the social sphere. So by that, I mean AI is now being used to create a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of stuff that we read that is just completely faked. And not only what we're reading, but what we're watching, what we're hearing. For example, deep fake videos. Those are possible because of AI technology. And even beyond that, all our browsing online, where we get all our information, it's all handled by algorithms, artificial intelligence algorithms. So obviously you're on YouTube, you know there's a YouTube algo that we all fight with. And on any social media platform that you go on, a specific algo is basically curating what you see. So going back to YouTube for a small example, what's happening now that we've realized is that if you search a particular topic on YouTube, say you type in AK Fallible, you're looking for this channel. Well, the first few results will be related to AK Fallible. But after the first 3 or 5, guess what YouTube will put there? Suggested videos based off what you've been watching. So say you watch a bunch of basketball highlights. Well, all those videos in your search results, when you're searching for something completely different, it's going to be basketball highlights. And that right there is a small example of the AI algorithm taking control and determining what you want even before you do. Or even when you say, no, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for AK Fallible or cat videos. And that might seem like a small thing, but it has a huge effect over time. It's why people fall into rabbit holes on different platforms. Like on YouTube, you could easily become right-wing radicalized. If you keep watching the same types of videos, you're going to get recommended more of those videos. And it's not just right-wing, it could be left-wing too. But in this case, before you know it, you're a Proud Boy. And you don't even know what happened. You were in the middle and you got thrown to the sides. That's the algorithm in action. Now, there are a few people who care about the dangers of AI. Because let's be honest, most people are just trying to use it to make more money. And one of those people is Elon Musk. And that's what makes his acquisition of Twitter so interesting to me. Because Elon is one of the few guys that I actually trust. And that's funny to say now because 10 years ago when I was following him, when very few people knew about him, compared to now, a lot of people still knew about him back then. But that wouldn't be a controversial statement. But now, for some reason, I guess because Elon's a billionaire, a lot of people hate him. The public hates him, in a sense. But I guess if you're on YouTube Finance, you wouldn't be talking to that side of the public, because really there's two sides. One side, which I guess I fall more on, that just love Elon, and the other side that hates him. And I would say this other side just doesn't understand what he's trying to do, which is why they would say that he's buying Twitter just to increase his control and power. But on this side, who like Elon, I would say it's something different. He's trying to get a handle on one of the biggest social media platforms to hopefully finally improve it. Because like I said, these media platforms, right, where everyone is getting their news, they are twisted by these algorithms. So I'm interested to see what happens when a guy like Elon Musk actually comes in and tries to fix things, when he does get control. Can he make something that's better? Because you always hear me complaining about algorithms, especially on YouTube. So it's very interesting to see what he's about to do. And the most recent update in this Twitter buyout is that he kind of put the deal on hold, or at least is trying to. And the reason why is because he's arguing and is concerned about the number of actual fake and spam accounts on Twitter. And this relates to AI because most of these spam accounts are created by these algorithms and they're pumping out the misinformation. Or, just general scams for shitcoins and whatnot. So we're going to talk about this with the help of Ben Thompson, the genius writer over at Stratechery. So you all have probably already seen this Elon tweet. He was saying the Twitter deal was temporarily on hold, pending details supporting the calculation that spam fake accounts do indeed represent less than 5% of users. That's what Twitter's saying. It's only less than 5%. Elon doesn't believe it. Now you can see here Twitter's stock price has been rocked because of all of this. It's down, almost 30%? And on the takeover news, it popped almost, 40%? And we were actually invested in Twitter in the MacroOps portfolio, but we sold around here because we knew how complicated it was going to get for the actual deal to close, so we didn't want to sit through all that. And sure enough, look, the thing round tripped. We bought it around here, thinking Twitter was a good long-term play if their management changed a few things. We didn't know the Elon acquisition was coming. That was pretty random, of course. No one knew that. So we got that nice little pop, and that's kind of a trade management decision where you got to decide, is it worth it to hold for the $54.20 buyout price that Elon was offering? What's the percentage of upside there versus the percentage of downside? Because if the deal gets shaky, this thing can round trip, right? Which sure enough it did. So you got to look at your risk reward reward. Is it actually worth it holding for that little bit of upside? Or do you want to lock in your gains and prevent the potential downside? So in this case, locking in our gains was the right move because look, it round tripped. Anyway, going back to Elon's bid, there's a popular view that Musk has the option to abandon the deal if he pays a $1 billion breakup fee. So this is why this tweet caused a lot of problems in this stock price. But the truth is that Elon can't actually get out of this deal. The contract that he signed gives Twitter the right to force him to close and put up the $27.5 billion of equity. So no, he can't really get out of this deal. So what it looks like is that Musk is trying to finagle a lower price out of Twitter. The 54.20 is looking rich given how much tech stocks have fallen in the last month. So this could be just a whole business move right here. I personally think it's both. I think it's a good business move, but it's also important to sort out this problem. So Elon did an interview recently about this whole thing, and he's asked whether he thinks Twitter actually doesn't know how many fake accounts are on the platform. And this is Chamath's podcast. You remember him? He was talking a lot during that pandemic and then shut up pretty quick afterwards. But he made his money, right? Just like a Kathy. Kathy's way better, but still. But anyway, Elon was saying they claim that they do know how many bots there are, and they claim they have a complex methodology that only they can understand. But it is a material adverse misstatement if they claim that they have less than 5% of fake or spam accounts, but is actually 4 or 5 times that number. So more like 20% of the accounts are fake. Maybe even more, and that's a big, big deal. Elon was saying the Twitter offer he made was reliant upon the truth and accuracy of their public filings. So if those filings aren't accurate, then you can't pay the same price for that. So then they ask him, okay, Elon, if you get to pay a lower price for Twitter, then it's totally viable, right? And Elon says it's not out of the question, but the more questions he asks, the more his concerns are growing. At the end of the day, it has to be fixable within a reasonable time frame and without revenues collapsing along the way. He needs to see how these things are being calculated. It can't be some deep mystery that's more complex than the human soul or something like that. He says we could apply the scientific method to this and figure out what's really going on. And I really like this approach right here. He's saying it cannot be that complex. We got to get a solid number. And that's a good general rule. If someone can't explain how they're calculating something or they can't explain a process, then the truth is that they don't actually know what's going on. So one thing we know about Elon is that he likes to break everything down into first principles. That's how he's able to do so many different things like land rockets and build brain technology, on top of the fact that he's a genius. But this just reminds me of that Richard Feynman quote that if you can't explain something to a 6th grader, you don't really understand it. And we see this a lot in many different places, including the finance world, using complicated calculations to get to something, but then they can't explain it. That's when you know a methodology is just BS. You gotta be able to logically explain what you're doing, and it's gotta make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense without having to be some PhD or genius, then it's probably not that stable. And in the markets, the more complicated you get, the more likely you are to actually blow up. We've seen that time and time again with so many hedge funds. Great example is long-term capital management back in the 90s. They had all these super smart PhDs working on all these models, and what happened? They just blew up and took the market down with them. So more complex is not better. Most of the time, simple is better. So you always want to be simplifying more and more and more if you can. Now, one of the reasons why Elon is worried about bots is because in his experience, when he's like the biggest Twitter user, right, one of the most popular, whenever he posts a tweet, he sees tons and tons of bots comment underneath it with nonstop scams, and you can't get rid of them. And that's true on every platform now. How many fake comments do we get on this YouTube channel right now? You'll see a comment from a picture, the same picture as mine that I use on my channel, and it'll say, "What's that mean?" And I'll hook you up in this crypto thing. Thankfully, you guys are smart and you don't fall for those scams. And I try to remove them as much as I can, but they come nonstop and there's no way to stop it. So how many fake YouTube accounts are there out there? Too many is what I'd say, and they keep coming every day. And we're a smaller channel too. The bigger channels, it's even worse. The top comment will be a scam or a bot. So Elon experiences that same thing on Twitter. Now, there are some outside companies that have tried to calculate how many bots are actually on Twitter, like this one company called SparkToro. So their analysis found that 19.42%, which is nearly 4 times Twitter's Q4 2021 estimate, fit a conservative definition of fake or spam accounts. That's a lot. Now, Ben Thompson thinks the way this study is done is actually bogus, and Twitter's estimates are probably more correct than people think. Now, are we going to know whether Elon and this company's calculations are correct or whether Twitter is correct? Maybe once Elon goes through the calculations, but the important thing is that the question is being asked. This is the stuff that the social media companies need to be working on, because this is where it starts to get dangerous. And I am excited for Elon to get a hold of this Twitter algorithm, because like I said, I really want to see what he does with it. My experience on Twitter, not so great. You just get stuck in these little holes of the same tweets over and over again with the same people. There's barely any discovery on the app. at least in my experience. But again, that happens on every single platform. Even Spotify, I hate Spotify for the reason of how their shuffle works. So I have a playlist, right? And I want to shuffle the music. So how should a shuffle work? It should be random songs each time, right? Just randomized. That's not how Spotify Shuffle works. Spotify Shuffle will put the songs that you listened to recently ahead in the playlist, even when you click shuffle, because their idea is that, hey, if you listened to this entire song before, you probably want to hear it again. And if you get the full play of that song again, they're supposedly giving you a better experience, so you're staying on the app longer, they make more money. But what I want on my Spotify playlist is a true shuffle, just random songs, because I put together the playlist already, right? But no, Spotify won't let me do that. So once again, it's an algorithm overriding my preference. On YouTube, a lot of you guys said you haven't seen my videos in months. Well, the reason for that is, first of all, because I was posting a lot less, but second of all, because a lot of those videos I wasn't saying market crash in them. And here's the thing, how the algorithm works. It doesn't matter if you're subscribed to my channel, because the algorithm is going to say, hey, we know you're subscribed, okay, you selected that preference, but we think we know you better. We're not going to give you an AK video unless it fits a certain criteria. So in my case, my channel was tied to market crash. So unless I put market crash in the title, you weren't going to see the video, which is again, an algorithm overriding your own preferences that you set. It's a dangerous thing, because where does it end? And we talked about this in a recent video, how dangerous the misinformation is becoming. It's actually two concepts together, elite overproduction and the flood of misinformation, and how that is going to have a huge impact on society. Because a lot of this information is coming from like GPT-3, which is that AI writing software. You're going to get a bunch of articles that sound super convincing that are completely misleading you. They're completely fake, made by an algorithm. And it's these platforms like Twitter, YouTube, that's where it's going to happen. That's where people are going to be misled. I'm going to put a link to that video right here, and it's really important because you'll start to understand how key it is for Elon to step in and kind of manage one of these algorithms. So we could see if it can be fixed, and we could see if there's like a better outcome we could come to. Because we don't necessarily want to get rid of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Well, maybe Facebook. But there's got to be a better solution so that we don't run into that elite overproduction and misinformation just cluster. They could easily put a large dent in our society. So click this video right here and I'll see you there.